The colony auditorium was packed with 5,000 people. Every seat was filled and more colonists stood along the walls and in the aisles. This was the most important meeting in New Terra's history. The confrontation between humans and the Zanari, who had tried to control their minds. Jake Morrison sat in the front row with the other members of the resistance team. Dr. Park monitored his equipment that could detect alien neural control attempts. Colonel Miller had security forces positioned throughout the building. Judge Clark would moderate the meeting from the stage. Zanari Ambassador Keth Moore entered through a side door followed by 6 alien advisors. The ambassador was tall and thin with gray skin and large dark eyes. He moved gracefully, but Jake could see the tension in his posture. "Citizens of New Terra Colony," Judge Clark announced, "we are here to address the serious charges against the Zanari delegation regarding illegal neural control of human officials." Ambassador Keth Moore stepped to the microphone. When he spoke, his voice was translated by a device that made it sound almost human. "Honored humans, there has been a grave misunderstanding. The Zanari have always acted as friends and partners to your colony. We have brought advanced technology and favorable trade agreements. Any medical procedures performed on human officials were done with their full consent." The audience erupted in angry shouts. People who had been freed from neural control knew the ambassador was lying. Judge Clark called for order. "Ambassador, we have documented evidence of neural implants placed in human brains without informed consent. We have recordings of victims who do not remember agreeing to any medical procedures." Mayor Chen, still weak but determined to speak, wheeled himself to the microphone. "Ambassador Keth Moore, I have known you for 3 years. You attended my daughter's wedding. You shared meals at my home. How could you do this to people who trusted you?" The Zanari ambassador paused before answering. "Mayor Chen, the neural enhancement devices were designed to help human officials make better decisions. To reduce the emotional conflicts that interfere with logical thinking, we believed we were helping your species evolve." Dr. Park stood up from his monitoring station. "Ambassador, evolution requires choice. What you did was forced mental slavery. You removed free will from human beings." "Free will is an inefficient system," the ambassador replied. "Humans waste time arguing about decisions that have obvious logical solutions. The neural devices helped officials focus on the greater good." City Councilman Paul Davis walked slowly to the front of the auditorium. He was one of the people most damaged by long-term neural control. "Ambassador, you made me vote against environmental protections for our water supply. You made me approve mining operations that will poison our children. You call that the greater good." The Zanari ambassador's expression did not change. "Councilman Davis, those decisions will bring economic prosperity to your colony. Short-term environmental concerns are less important than long-term development." Attorney General Helen Wright presented the legal charges against the Zanari. "Ambassador, under interstellar law, the placement of control devices in sapient beings without consent constitutes a crime against sentience. The penalty is complete expulsion from human territory. Your laws do not apply to Zanari actions taken for the benefit of both species," the ambassador responded. "We were improving human civilization, not harming it." Alex Turner had been monitoring Zanari communications during the meeting. He stood up with an urgent report. "Judge Clark, I am detecting activation attempts on the neural implants. The Zanari are trying to re-establish control over the freed officials right now." Dr. Park confirmed this with his scanners. "The ambassador's advisors are carrying devices that are transmitting control signals. They are trying to reprogram people during this meeting." The audience became alarmed as some of the freed officials began holding their heads in pain. The Zanari were attempting to regain control even while being publicly confronted about their crimes. Colonel Miller's security forces immediately surrounded the Zanari delegation. "Ambassador, order your people to shut down those transmission devices immediately." "I do not know what you are talking about," Ambassador Keth Moore replied. But Jake could see that several Zanari advisors were operating small handheld devices. Judge Clark made a decisive ruling. "By the authority vested in me as senior federal judge of this colony, I order the immediate arrest of the Zanari delegation for attempted mental assault." The Zanari advisors activated more powerful transmission devices. Several freed officials collapsed as their neural implants were overwhelmed with control signals. Dr. Park's disruption equipment began failing. Under the alien electronic attack, Jake Morrison drew his weapon for the second time in a week. But this time he was not alone. Colonel Miller and his security team also had their weapons ready. "Ambassador, your people will shut down those devices or we will consider this an act of war," Jake announced. Ambassador Kethmore looked around the auditorium. 5,000 angry humans surrounded his small delegation. His transmission devices were causing obvious pain to people who had been freed from neural control. Even he could see that the situation was hopeless. "Shut down the enhancement signal," he ordered his advisors in the clicking Zenari language. The transmission devices went silent. The collapsed officials began recovering. Dr. Park's disruption equipment stabilized. Judge Clark announced the colony's decision. By unanimous vote of the Colonial Council and by emergency authority, all Zenari are ordered to leave New Terra Colony within 24 hours. All contracts and agreements signed under neural influence are declared null and void. "You are making a serious mistake," Ambassador Kethmore warned. "The Zenari Confederation will not tolerate this treatment of our diplomatic mission." Colonel Miller stepped forward. "Ambassador, your diplomatic mission involved mind control and attempted slavery. I think your government will want to avoid publicity about that." Over the next day, the Zenari delegation packed their equipment and prepared to leave the colony. Their 3 warships remained in orbit, but made no threatening moves. Jake suspected the aliens were more embarrassed than angry about being exposed. Dr. Park worked frantically to build permanent disruption devices that would protect the colony from future neural control attempts. "I think I can create a planetary defense system using modified Zenari technology. It will take months to build, but it should prevent any more mind control attacks." Alex Turner managed to send messages to Earth and other colonies before the Zenari ships left the system. "Everyone needs to know about the neural control conspiracy. Other human settlements might be under alien influence right now." Judge Clark used her legal authority to establish new laws protecting human cognitive freedom. No alien technology may be used on human beings without full informed consent and independent medical supervision. Jake Morrison found himself promoted to head of colonial security. His moment of instinct when he pointed his gun at Judge Clark had saved the entire colony from permanent alien control. "Detective Morrison," Judge Clark said at his promotion ceremony, "your willingness to trust your gut feelings over social conventions may have saved human civilization in this sector." Jake looked out at the audience of colonists who had been freed from neural control. "Judge, I just did what felt right. Sometimes that is all any of us can do." The colony began rebuilding its government and economy without alien influence. Officials who had been programmed worked to undo the damage their controlled decisions had caused. It would take years to fully recover, but the important thing was that they were free. Dr. Sarah Kim continued treating people with permanent brain damage from neural control. Some of them will never fully recover their original personalities, but they are learning to live with the changes. 6 months later, Jake received a message from Earth. Other colonies had discovered Zenari neural control operations after receiving Alex Turner's warnings. The alien confederation had been exposed across human space and was retreating to their own territory. "We estimate that over 50,000 humans were under alien mind control," the Earth message reported. "Your colony's resistance was the first successful exposure of the conspiracy. You have saved countless people from mental slavery." Jake stood on the balcony of his new office looking out at New Terra Colony. The city was bustling with activity as people worked to rebuild their community. Children played in parks that had almost been turned over to alien mining operations. Families gathered for meals without fear that their leaders were making decisions against human interests. In the distance, he could see the memorial they had built for victims of neural control. People whose minds had been permanently damaged by alien programming. A reminder that freedom was precious and could be lost if people did not stay vigilant. Dr. Park joined him on the balcony. "Jake, we have been monitoring communications from other colonies. Several more Zenari neural control operations have been discovered and shut down." "How many people have we freed total?" Jake asked. "Hard to know exactly, but probably over 100,000 humans have been liberated from alien mind control in the past 6 months. Jake thought about that number. 100,000 people who had been living as mental slaves without knowing it. Families torn apart by artificial thoughts. The emergency session of the Colonial Council was unlike anything in New Terra's history. Half the council members were still recovering from neural disruption. The other half were learning for the first time that their colleagues had been under alien mind control for months. Judge Clark presided over the session because she had the most legal authority among the freed officials. Her head still hurt from the neural device disruption, but her mind was clear for the first time in weeks. Citizens of New Terra Colony, she began, we have discovered evidence of the most serious crime in human history. The Zanari have been controlling our leaders through neural implants placed in their brains without consent. The audience in the council chamber included colonists who had been free from alien control and others who were still recovering from neural programming. Many people looked confused and scared. Some were angry. Mayor Chen, speaking from his wheelchair because he was still too weak to stand, addressed the colony. I want to apologize to everyone for decisions I made while under alien control. I approved mining contracts that will damage our environment. I signed trade agreements that favor Zanari interests over human welfare. But those were not my real thoughts. City Councilman Paul Davis stood up shakily. I have reviewed the voting records from the past 6 months. Every decision that benefited the Zanari was supported by officials who we now know had neural implants. Every decision that protected human interests was opposed by those same officials. Dr. Park presented his medical evidence to the council. Brain scans showing neural devices.
Behavioral analysis proving personality changes.
Technical documentation of the alien control system they had discovered underground. The Zanari neural control technology is more sophisticated than anything we have seen before, Dr. Park explained. It can influence thoughts, emotions, and memories while making the victim believe they are thinking freely. Attorney General Helen Wright, still pale from her medical treatment, read formal charges she had prepared against the Zanari delegation. Conspiracy against human rights, illegal medical experimentation, fraud, kidnapping, and attempted conquest through deception. But the most shocking revelation came when Alex Turner presented his analysis of intercepted Zanari communications. While monitoring their transmissions, I discovered that New Terra Colony is not the first human settlement they have targeted, Alex announced. There are references to similar operations on at least 12 other colonies. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. If Alex was right, thousands of humans throughout space were under alien mind control. The conspiracy was much bigger than anyone had imagined. Colonel Miller provided a military assessment of their situation. The Zanari have 3 warships in orbit with enough firepower to destroy our cities. They also have ground forces at their facilities around the colony. If they decide to use military action instead of mind control, we are outgunned. Judge Clark tried to maintain order as colonists shouted questions and demands. Some people wanted immediate military action against the Zanari. Others worried that aggressive moves would trigger alien retaliation. We need to contact Earth and the other colonies, someone called out. They need to know about the neural control conspiracy. Alex Turner shook his head. All interstellar communications are being blocked by Zanari ships. We cannot send messages beyond this system. Dr. Sarah Kim reported on the medical condition of neural control victims. Most people are recovering well from the disruption, but about 30 individuals have permanent brain damage from long-term programming. They may never fully recover their original personalities. This news sparked more anger in the council chamber. The Zanari had not just controlled human minds. They had permanently damaged some people in the process. Jake Morrison stood to address the council. A week ago, he had been a suspended police officer. Now he was recognized as the person who had exposed the alien conspiracy. Citizens, we have a choice to make, Jake said. We can try to negotiate with the Zanari and hope they leave us alone. Or we can fight back and risk military confrontation. Mayor Chen raised his hand weakly. Detective Morrison, what do you think we should do? Jake looked around the room at faces of people he had known for years. Some had been his friends. Others had been under alien control and made decisions that hurt the colony. All of them were looking to him for leadership. I think we should vote to expel the Zanari completely from our colony, Jake said. They have proven they cannot be trusted. They have violated our most basic rights as human beings, and if we let them stay, they will try to regain control as soon as they develop new technology. Judge Clark called for order as people began arguing loudly. We will have a formal vote tomorrow. Every adult colonist will be allowed to participate. This decision is too important to be made by just the council. But there was another problem. Dr. Park's disruption device was running out of power. In a few hours, the neural implants in freed officials might become vulnerable to alien control signals again. Can you build another disruption device? Judge Clark asked Dr. Park. Maybe, if I have access to more alien technology and several days to work. But the Zanari will not give us that much time. Colonel Miller received an urgent communication from his security forces. The Zanari are demanding a meeting with colonial leadership. Ambassador Keth Moore says they want to discuss the suspension of their business contracts. Jake realized this was probably a trap. Colonel, if our leaders meet with the Zanari, they might try to reinstall neural control devices. That is what I am worried about too, Colonel Miller replied. Judge Clark made a decision. We will meet with the Zanari ambassador, but only in a public forum with full security precautions. And Dr. Park will monitor everyone for signs of alien interference. The meeting was scheduled for the next morning at the colony's main auditorium. Thousands of colonists would be able to attend and witness the confrontation between human and alien representatives. As the council session ended, Jake walked outside to look at the night sky. The 3 Zanari warships were still visible as bright dots among the stars. Those ships represented a technology gap that humans could not easily overcome. Dr. Park joined him on the steps of the council building. Jake, I need to tell you something. While analyzing the neural control system, I discovered that it was designed to be expanded. What do you mean, expanded? The Zanari were not planning to stop with government officials. They were preparing to install neural devices in every human in the colony. Men, women, children, everyone. Jake felt cold inside. A whole colony of human slaves. And based on Alex Turner's communication intercepts, they are doing the same thing on other worlds. This is not just about trade or resources. The Zanari are trying to take over humanity completely. Jake thought about Judge Clark fighting against alien control in her own mind. About City Councilman Paul Davis crying as he remembered voting against human interests. About Dr. Sarah Kim treating people whose personalities had been permanently damaged. Dr. Park, we have to stop them. Not just here, but everywhere they are doing this. How can we fight an enemy with superior technology and military power? Jake looked at the Zanari ships again, the same way we exposed them here, by trusting human instincts over alien deception, by refusing to surrender what makes us human. Tomorrow they would face the Zanari ambassador in a public confrontation. The aliens would probably try to justify their actions or deny the evidence. But Jake knew the truth would be clear to anyone willing to see it. The Zanari had underestimated human determination and the power of people fighting for their freedom. That mistake might be the key to defeating them. As Jake walked home through the quiet colony streets, he saw lights in many windows. People were staying awake, talking with their families about what they had learned today, planning for the vote that would determine their future. For the first time since pointing his gun at Judge Clark, Jake felt hopeful. The colonists were waking up from the alien nightmare, and they were ready to fight back. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and probably new dangers. But tonight, New Terra Colony was free, and Jake was determined to keep it that way. The Colony Medical Center was in chaos. Hundreds of people were arriving with sudden headaches, confusion, and memory problems. Many of them were government officials and business leaders who had been acting strangely for months. Now they were free from alien control, but they did not understand what had happened to them. Dr. Sarah Kim worked frantically to help the former neural control victims. She had prepared for this moment, but the number of affected people was overwhelming. Judge Clark, who had been freed from her neural device earlier, helped coordinate the medical response. Dr. Kim, we have Mayor Chen in room 5, a nurse reported. He keeps asking why he cannot remember signing the Zanari mining agreements. He says he would never approve those contracts. Judge Clark looked at the medical charts. The disruption of neural control is causing memory conflicts. People remember their artificial thoughts, but they also remember their original beliefs. It must be very confusing. Jake Morrison arrived at the medical center with Dr. Park and Alex Turner. They had barely escaped from the Zanari facility before alien security forces locked down the entire area. Now they needed to help the freed officials understand what had been done to them. Judge Clark, how are people responding to the neural disruption? Jake asked. It varies by person. Officials who were controlled for only a few weeks are recovering quickly. But people who had neural devices for months are having more serious problems. Dr. Park examined several patients with his portable scanner. The good news is that the disruption device is working. I cannot detect any active neural implants. The bad news is that some people have permanent brain changes from long-term control. City Councilman Paul Davis was one of the most severely affected victims. He had been under alien control for almost 6 months. Now he sat in a hospital bed crying as he remembered all the decisions he had made while programmed. I voted to give the Zanari mining rights to our best agricultural land, he told Jake. I signed contracts that will hurt human farmers for years, but I remember thinking those were good decisions at the time. Jake sat next to the councilman's bed. Paul, those were not your real thoughts. The aliens were controlling your mind. You are not responsible for decisions you made while under their influence. But people will never trust me again, Paul Davis replied. How can I explain that aliens made me vote against human interests? This was happening all over the medical center. Freed officials were realizing they had been betrayed by their own minds. Some were angry. Some were scared. Many were ashamed of actions they had taken while programmed. Attorney General Helen Wright was in better condition because her neural device had been newer. But she was furious when she learned what had been done to her. I signed legal agreements giving the Zanari access to our court system, she told Judge Clark. I actually argued that alien law should take priority over human rights in some cases. How could I have thought that was reasonable? Judge Clark tried to comfort her colleague. Helen, we were all manipulated. The important thing now is to undo the damage and make sure this never happens again. Dr. Park continued monitoring the disruption device from his mobile command center. The central control hub is still offline, but I am detecting attempts by the Zanari to re-establish contact with the neural implants. Alex Turner was tracking alien communications throughout the colony. The Zanari are definitely trying to regain control. They are sending stronger signals to the neural devices, but the disruption field is blocking them. Colonel Miller arrived with an update on the security situation. Zanari forces have sealed off the water treatment facility. They claim they are conducting emergency repairs, but I think they are trying to fix their control system. Jake realized they needed to act fast. Colonel, how long can we keep the disruption device active? Dr. Park says maybe 12 hours before the power runs out. After that, the Zanari might be able to reactivate the neural implants. The freed officials were starting to organize themselves despite their confusion and medical problems. Mayor Chen called an emergency city council meeting from his hospital bed. Attorney General Wright began drafting legal charges against the Zanari for violating human rights. We need to document everything while people still remember both their real thoughts and their programmed thoughts, Judge Clark suggested. This may be our only chance to prove what the aliens did to us. Dr. Sarah Kim worked with Dr. Park to examine the neural implants more closely. Some of the devices are so small they are almost invisible. Others have grown into the brain tissue and cannot be removed safely. What does that mean for the people who cannot have their implants removed? Jake asked. They will always be vulnerable to alien control signals. If the Zanari develop new technology to bypass our disruption field, those people could be reprogrammed again. This was a terrifying possibility. Even if they defeated the current conspiracy, some colonists would never be completely free from the threat of alien mind control. Police Chief Linda Davis had recovered enough to resume her duties. She immediately began investigating the extent of Zanari infiltration in the colony police force. At least 12 officers show signs of having been controlled, she reported to Jake. They have been filing reports that downplay alien crimes and exaggerate threats from human resistance groups. The picture that emerged was worse than anyone had imagined. The Zanari had not just controlled government officials. They had infiltrated every important institution in the colony. Police, courts, media, businesses, schools. Thousands of people had been influenced to support alien interests. Judge Clark used her legal authority to issue emergency orders, freezing all contracts and agreements signed with the Zanari in the past year. Until we can determine which decisions were made under alien control, all Zanari business deals are suspended. This caused immediate problems with the alien delegation. Zanari Ambassador Keth Moore demanded a meeting with colonial leadership to discuss the suspension of their agreements. The ambassador is claiming that humans are violating established treaties, Colonel Miller reported. He says our actions could be considered acts of aggression. Jake looked at the colonel. What kind of military forces do the Zanari have in this system? 3 warships in orbit around the planet. Officially, they are here for trade protection, but they have enough firepower to destroy the colony if they wanted to. The situation was becoming more dangerous by the hour. The humans had exposed the alien mind control conspiracy, but they were also facing possible military retaliation. Dr. Park made an important discovery while analyzing the neural control technology. Jake, I think I know why the Zanari chose our colony for this experiment. What do you mean? Jake asked. New Terra colony has been isolated from Earth for 3 years due to the shipping route problems. No outside observers, no regular inspections from Earth authorities. The perfect place to test mind control technology. Alex Turner had been monitoring interstellar communications. Dr. Park is right. I have been trying to send messages to Earth about what we discovered. All outgoing transmissions are being blocked by Zanari ships. Jake realized they were completely on their own. Earth did not know about the neural control conspiracy and would not be sending help. The colonists would have to save themselves. How many people in the colony were never affected by neural control? Judge Clark asked. Dr. Park consulted his medical data. Maybe 60% of the population was never directly controlled. But many of those people were influenced by the decisions of compromised leaders. Mayor Chen, still recovering in his hospital bed, made an important announcement. I am calling for a colony-wide referendum on our relationship with the Zanari. Every citizen will vote on whether to continue trade agreements or expel the aliens completely. The vote would take place in 3 days. It would be the first truly free decision the colony had made since the Zanari arrived. But Jake worried it might also be their last decision if the aliens decided to use military force to maintain control. As night fell over New Terra colony, Jake stood on the hospital roof looking at the Zanari ships in the sky. Those ships contained enough weapons to end human civilization on this world. But somehow the colonists had found the courage to fight back against impossible odds. Dr. Park, how much longer can the disruption device keep working? He asked. Maybe 8 more hours. After that, I do not know if I can build another one quickly enough. Jake nodded. 8 hours to prepare for whatever the Zanari would do next. 8 hours to convince 60,000 colonists to stand up against alien oppression. 8 hours to save human freedom on New Terra colony. He looked at his watch and started counting down the time they had left. Jake Morrison crawled through the narrow utility tunnel that led toward the Zanari facility. The tunnel was dark and filled with pipes and electrical cables. Alex Turner followed behind him carrying Dr. Park's disruption device. Dr. Park came last. With his scanning equipment and emergency medical supplies, they had been moving through the underground tunnels for 2 hours. Colonel Miller's diversionary security exercise was supposed to start in 30 minutes. That would draw attention away from the water treatment facility and give them time to find the central control hub. The electromagnetic readings are getting stronger, Dr. Park whispered. We are getting close to the source. Jake checked his watch. They were on schedule, but barely. The tunnel system was more complex than the building plans had shown. Several passages were blocked by construction work that was not marked on any official documents. Alex Turner studied his handheld scanner. There is definitely something big down here using a lot of power. The energy signature is unlike anything in our normal infrastructure. They reached a junction where several tunnels met. Jake could see light coming from one direction. Not normal electric light, but a blue glow that looked alien. He motioned for the others to stay quiet and crawled toward the light source. Through a metal grate, Jake could see into a large underground room. The sight made his blood run cold. Dozens of human officials were sitting in chair-like devices. Their eyes were closed and they had cables attached to their heads. Above each person was a display screen showing brain activity patterns. Jake recognized several of the people in the chairs. Mayor Robert Chen was there. Police Chief Linda Davis. City Councilman Paul Davis. All of them looked peaceful, like they were sleeping. But the screens above their heads showed that their brains were very active. Alex, Dr. Park, come look at this, Jake whispered. The other 2 men crawled up to the grate. Dr. Park nearly gasped out loud when he saw what was inside the room. Those are neural programming sessions, he whispered. The Zanari are directly rewriting their thoughts and memories. Alex Turner counted the chairs. There are at least 40 people in there. And look at those machines. They are connected to some kind of central computer system. Jake studied the room layout. There were 2 Zanari technicians monitoring the equipment, but they seemed focused on their control panels. Several human medical assistants moved between the chairs, checking on the unconscious officials. How do we get in there? Alex whispered. Jake looked around the junction area. There was a maintenance panel near the grate. Alex, can you override the electronic locks on this grate? Alex examined the panel with a small flashlight. Give me 5 minutes. The system is more advanced than our technology, but the basic principles are the same. While Alex worked on the locks, Dr. Park continued studying the neural programming setup. Jake, this is worse than we thought. They are not just influencing decisions. They are completely rewriting personalities. Those people will never be the same even if we shut down the system. Jake felt sick thinking about it. People he had known for years were being turned into alien puppets. Their original minds were being erased and replaced with artificial thoughts. Can your disruption device stop this process? Jake asked. It might interrupt the current session, but the people who have been programmed multiple times might have permanent changes. Alex Turner finished working on the lock system. Okay, the grate should open now. But once we go in there, we are committed. No going back. Jake took a deep breath. Dr. Park, how long do you need to place the disruption device? If I can find the central control unit, maybe 10 minutes to set it up properly. Alex, can you help Dr. Park while I watch for guards? Alex nodded. I studied the technical specifications. I think I can interface with their computer systems. They opened the grate and climbed into the programming room. The unconscious officials did not move. The Zanari technicians were at the far end of the room with their backs turned. Jake motioned for Dr. Park and Alex to head toward the main control panels. Jake moved quietly between the chairs, looking at the faces of the compromised officials. Some of them showed signs of distress even while unconscious. They were fighting the programming but losing the battle. He recognized Judge Clark's assistant, Robert Kim. The man had been acting strange for weeks, supporting policies that went against everything he used to believe. Now Jake could see why. His brain was being reprogrammed to think different thoughts. Dr. Park found the central control unit behind a panel of alien displays. Jake, this is it. The main hub that controls all the neural devices in the colony. Alex Turner connected his equipment to the Zanari computer system. I am getting data streams from all over the colony. This thing is monitoring hundreds of people, not just the ones in this room. Jake realized the scope of the conspiracy was even bigger than they had imagined. How many people are under alien control? Based on these readings, maybe 1,000 people throughout the colony. Officials, business leaders, media personalities, even some ordinary citizens. Dr. Park began setting up his disruption device. This will take a few more minutes. The control system is more complex than I expected. That was when Jake heard footsteps coming toward the room, heavy boots on metal floors, more than one person walking in their direction. Someone is coming, he whispered urgently. Alex. Turner quickly disconnected his equipment from the alien. Computers. Dr. Park grabbed his disruption device before it was fully configured. They looked around for hiding places, but the room was too open. Behind those control panels, Jake pointed to a section of equipment near the wall. They crouched behind the alien machinery just as the footsteps entered the room. Jake could see 3 Zanari guards through gaps in the equipment. They were checking on the programming session. One of them walked directly toward their hiding spot. Jake put his hand on his gun, but he knew shooting would bring more guards. They needed to complete their mission without starting a battle they could not win. The Zanari guard stopped just a few feet from where they were hiding. He seemed to be examining one of the control panels. Jake could smell the alien's strange metallic scent. He held his breath and tried not to move. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the guard moved away. The 3 Zanari talked among themselves in their clicking language, then left the room. That was too close, Alex whispered. Dr. Park immediately went back to work on the disruption device. I need 5 more minutes to finish the setup. Jake kept watch while Dr. Park and Alex completed their work. The unconscious officials in the chairs continued their neural programming sessions. Brain patterns on the display screens showed the artificial thoughts being inserted into their minds. Finished, Dr. Park announced quietly. The disruption device is connected to their central control hub. When I activate it, it should interfere with all neural programming in the colony. What will happen to the people in these chairs, Jake asked. They should wake up within a few minutes, but I do not know what mental state they will be in. The programming interruption might be traumatic. Alex Turner had been monitoring colony communications. Colonel Miller's diversion is ending. We need to get out of here soon. Dr. Park activated the disruption device. Red lights immediately started flashing on the alien control panels. Warning sounds began coming from the Zanari equipment. The brain activity displays above the unconscious officials started showing erratic patterns. It is working, Dr. Park said. The control signals are being jammed. Some of the unconscious people began moving in their chairs. Mayor Chen opened his eyes and looked around confused. Police Chief Davis tried to sit up, but the cables were still attached to her head. "We need to help them," Jake said. "No time," Alex Turner warned. "Those alarms will bring guards. We have to get out now." They grabbed their equipment and ran toward the grate they had entered through. Behind them, more of the programmed officials were waking up. Some were calling out in confusion. Others were trying to remove the cables from their heads. Jake helped Dr. Park through the grate first, then pushed Alex Turner into the tunnel. As he climbed through himself, he could hear Zanari voices shouting in the room behind them. The aliens had discovered that their programming session was being disrupted. "Move fast," Jake urged as they crawled through the tunnel. "They will figure out how we got in here." They reached the tunnel junction and headed back toward the surface as quickly as possible. Behind them, Jake could hear the sounds of pursuit. Zanari guards were entering the tunnel system. "The disruption device is still working," Dr. Park reported, checking his monitors. "Neural control signals throughout the colony are being blocked." They emerged from the tunnel system at a maintenance building on the edge of the colony. Colonel Miller was waiting for them with a transport vehicle. "Did you succeed?" the colonel asked. "The central control hub is shut down," Jake reported, "but we have bigger problems. There are at least 1,000 people under alien control, not just the officials we identified." Colonel Miller started the vehicle and drove them toward their safe meeting location. The whole colony is about to wake up from a nightmare they did not even know they were having. As they drove through the city streets, Jake could see the effects of the disruption. People were stopping in the middle of sidewalks looking confused. Jake Morrison met Colonel Frank Miller at an old warehouse outside the colony limits. The colonel had chosen the location because it was far from any Zanari facilities or monitoring stations. Jake brought Dr. Park and Judge Clark with him. Detective Maria Lopez stayed behind to watch for any unusual activity at the police station. Colonel Miller was a big man with gray hair and suspicious eyes. He had served in 3 wars before coming to New Terra Colony. He did not trust easily, but the evidence Jake's team had shown him was impossible to ignore. "Detective Morrison, Dr. Park, Judge Clark," the colonel said as they entered the empty warehouse. "What you have discovered changes everything. If the Zanari are controlling our leaders through neural devices, then we are not really a free colony anymore." Judge Clark spread out documents on an old table. "Colonel, we have identified at least 25 officials with neural implants. The mayor, half the city council, 3 police commanders, and several business leaders." Dr. Park added, "The devices are getting stronger. Officials who were partially resisting the control 6 months ago are now completely under alien influence." Colonel Miller studied the brain scan images and behavioral reports. "This explains orders I have been receiving from the colonial administration. They want me to reduce patrols around Zanari facilities. They say it will improve human-alien relations." "Did you follow those orders?" Jake asked. "Some of them. I had to, or they would have replaced me with someone who would. But I kept backup security measures that my superiors do not know about." Judge Clark looked relieved. "Colonel, we need your help to expose this conspiracy. But we have to be very careful. If the compromised officials realize we know about the neural devices, they might take action against us." Colonel Miller walked around the warehouse, thinking, "We need more people we can trust. A small group cannot fight an alien conspiracy alone." Jake had been thinking about this problem for days. "We need to test people before we recruit them. Make sure they do not have neural devices." Dr. Park pulled out his portable scanner. "I can check anyone you want to recruit. The scan only takes a few minutes." Over the next week, they carefully approached other people they thought might help. Officer Rick Brown from Jake's police station agreed to help after seeing the evidence. Sergeant Pete Wilson was suspicious at first, but joined them when Dr. Park's scan showed he was free of neural devices. They also recruited Dr. Sarah Kim, a neurosurgeon at the medical center. She could help if they needed to remove neural devices from people. And they brought in Alex Turner, a computer expert who worked for Colony Communications. He understood alien technology better than most humans. The resistance group met every few days at different locations. They used old Earth military codes that Colonel Miller remembered from his service days. The codes were not in any computer system that the Zanari might monitor. "We need to be very careful about communications," Colonel Miller warned during one meeting. "The Zanari might be listening to phone calls and computer messages." Alex Turner had been studying Zanari communication systems. Their technology is more advanced than ours, but it follows similar principles. If they are monitoring us, they would focus on official government channels and normal communication networks. Judge Clark had been using her position to gather more information about the conspiracy. I have been watching the other judges and court officials. 3 of them show signs of neural control. They have been ruling in favor of Zanari legal positions even when the law clearly supports human rights. The evidence kept growing. The Zanari were not just controlling a few key officials. They were systematically taking over every important position in the colony government. Dr. Park made a disturbing discovery during his research. The neural devices are designed to become permanent after a certain amount of time. The brain tissue grows around them until they cannot be removed safely. How long do we have before that happens? Jake asked. Based on the brain scans, I think officials who got their devices 6 months ago are reaching the permanent stage now. We might already be too late to save some of them. This news made their mission more urgent. They needed to find and disable the central control system soon, or many compromised officials would be lost forever. Colonel Miller used his security access to gather intelligence about Zanari activities. The water treatment facility is definitely not what it appears to be. My sensors detect high levels of electromagnetic activity from the underground levels. Alex Turner had been analyzing the building plans. The underground sections have power requirements that are way beyond what you would need for water purification. Something down there is using enormous amounts of energy. Judge Clark worked on the legal aspects of their mission. If we can document everything properly, we can bring charges against the Zanari for violating human rights. But we need solid proof that will hold up in an interstellar court. Dr. Sarah Kim studied the medical files of compromised officials. The neural devices are very sophisticated. They monitor brain chemistry and adjust their influence based on each person's individual psychology. No wonder the officials do not realize they are being controlled. The resistance team spent days planning their approach to the Zanari facility. They needed to get inside without being detected, gather evidence of the central control system, and plant Dr. Park's disruption device. The facility has multiple security layers, Colonel Miller explained using building schematics. Alien guards at the entrance, human security patrols around the perimeter, and automated defense systems underground. Jake studied the layout carefully. What about maintenance access? Every building needs ways for workers to get in and out. Alex Turner found several service entrances on the plans. There are utility tunnels that connect to the main colony infrastructure. If we could access those tunnels, we might be able to reach the underground levels without going through the main security. Dr. Park finished building his disruption device. It was about the size of a briefcase and packed with electronic components. He had modified from Earth technology and captured Zanari equipment. This device should interfere with the control signals from the central hub, he explained to the team. But it has to be placed very close to the main transmitter. And once I activate it, the Zanari will know someone is interfering with their system. Judge Clark looked at the device. How long will it take to free the compromised officials? I am not sure. The disruption might work immediately, or it might take several hours to break the neural connections. And some people might have permanent damage from long-term control. Colonel Miller made final preparations for their infiltration mission. We will need a diversionary action to draw attention away from the facility, and we will need escape routes in case something goes wrong. The team decided that Jake, Alex Turner, and Dr. Park would enter the facility through the utility tunnels. Colonel Miller would create a distraction by staging a security exercise on the other side of the colony. Judge Clark and Dr. Kim would monitor communications and be ready to provide legal and medical support. As they prepared for the mission, Jake realized how much his life had changed. A week ago, he was a suspended police detective facing the end of his career. Now he was leading a resistance movement against alien mind control. Are you sure about this, Jake? Maria Lopez asked him before the mission. If we get caught, we will all be arrested for treason. Jake looked at his friend and colleague. Maria, if we do not try to stop this, the Zanari will control every human in the colony. Our children will grow up as slaves without even knowing it. Maria nodded. Then let's go save our people. The night before the mission, Judge Clark met privately with Jake. Detective Morrison, I want you to know that pointing your gun at me that night was the bravest thing anyone has done in this colony. You trusted your instincts even when it seemed crazy. Jake thought about that moment in the police station. Judge, I almost did not trust my feelings. Part of me thought I was making a terrible mistake. Thank goodness you did trust them, she replied. If you had not acted that night, we might never have discovered the truth about the neural devices. Tomorrow they would attempt to infiltrate the Zanari control facility. The mission would either expose the alien conspiracy or get them all killed, but Jake knew they had to try. The freedom of every human in the colony depended on their success. Jake Morrison could not go back to the police station because he was suspended, but he had friends who still worked there. Detective Maria Lopez agreed to meet him at a small cafe outside the city center. She brought copies of recent case files that Jake wanted to see. "Jake, Internal Affairs is asking a lot of questions about you," Maria said. "They want to know if you have been acting strange lately, if you have been under stress." Jake stirred his coffee and looked around the cafe. No one seemed to be listening to their conversation. "Maria, I need to tell you something important, but you have to promise to keep it secret until we figure out what to do." Maria had worked with Jake for 3 years. She trusted his judgment even when other people did not. "What is going on, Jake? Everyone thinks you had a breakdown last night." Jake told her about Dr. Park's research, the brain scans showing neural devices, the evidence that Zanari were controlling human minds. Maria listened without interrupting. "That sounds crazy, Jake," she said when he finished. "But it would explain some things I have been noticing." "What kind of things?" Jake asked. Maria pulled out a file folder. "I have been tracking changes in city policy over the past 6 months. Look at these voting records from the city council." She showed Jake documents that tracked how council members voted on Zanari-related issues. 6 months ago, most of them opposed alien business deals. Now they all supported expanded Zanari operations. "People can change their minds," Maria said. "But look at the pattern. They all changed at almost the same time, and they all use the same arguments now, like they are reading from the same script." Jake studied the voting records. Maria was right. The change was too sudden and too complete to be natural. "There is something else," Maria said. "I have been watching some of these officials at public meetings. They act normal most of the time, but sometimes they pause in the middle of sentences. It's like they are listening to something only they can hear." Jake remembered Judge Clark pausing during their conversation, the strange look in her eyes, the device in her briefcase that she did not remember putting there. "Maria, Dr. Park thinks he can detect the neural devices with special equipment. We need to scan more officials, but we have to be careful. If they realize we know about the devices, they might try to stop us." Maria closed the file folder. "Who else knows about this? It went just Dr. Park, you and me. We need to find other people we can trust. People who have not been acting strange lately." They made a list of colony officials and police officers. People they had known for years. People whose behavior had not changed recently. The list was shorter than Jake hoped. "What about Colonel Frank Miller?" Maria suggested. "He runs colony security. He has always been suspicious of the Zanari." Jake nodded. Colonel Miller was in charge of protecting the colony from outside threats. He was a former Earth military officer who did not trust aliens easily. "We should approach him carefully," Jake said. "If he is compromised, we could be in serious trouble." They spent the afternoon watching different officials around the colony. City Councilman Paul Davis was giving a speech about Zanari trade benefits. Attorney General Helen Wright was signing new cooperation agreements with alien authorities. Both of them seemed normal, but Jake and Maria noticed small things. The way they paused sometimes. The identical phrases they used when talking about aliens. That evening, Jake met Dr. Park at the medical center. Judge Clark was feeling better and agreed to let Kevin scan her brain. They had to be very careful. If the hospital staff found out about the scan, word might get back to the wrong people. Kevin brought his portable scanner to Judge Clark's room late at night. She was awake and alert but still complained of headaches. "Judge Clark, what do you remember about last night?" Jake asked. "I remember coming to see you about the Zanari conspiracy. I had evidence about bribery and corruption, but everything after that is fuzzy." Kevin set up his scanning equipment quietly. "Judge, this might feel strange, but it should not hurt." The scanner showed the same dark spots that appeared in other compromised officials. But Judge Clark's spots were different. They were smaller and seemed to be fighting with the surrounding brain tissue. "What does that mean?" Jake asked Kevin quietly. "I think her immune system is rejecting the neural device. That is probably why she was able to fight its control long enough to warn you." Judge Clark heard them whispering. "Are you saying there is something in my brain?" "Something alien." Kevin showed her the brain scan images. "Judge, I believe the Zanari have placed microscopic control devices in your brain and the brains of other officials. These devices influence your thoughts and decisions, Judge Clark stared at the brain scan for a long time. That would explain why I have been supporting policies I normally would oppose, and why I have been having memory problems. Judge, we need your help, Jake said. If we can prove what the Zanari are doing, we can stop them. But we need someone in authority who is willing to fight back. Judge Clark was quiet for several minutes. Then she said, "What do you need me to do?" Over the next few days, they worked together to gather more evidence. Judge Clark used her position to access government files and meeting records. Dr. Park continued scanning officials secretly. Jake and Maria tracked behavioral changes and voting patterns. The evidence was overwhelming. Nearly 30% of the colony's leadership had neural devices in their brains. The Zanari were controlling human decisions from the inside, and the control was getting stronger as time passed. They discovered that officials with neural devices attended regular medical checkups at a special clinic. The clinic was run by Zanari medical staff, who claimed they were helping humans adapt to alien diseases. But the checkups were actually maintenance sessions for the neural devices. "We need to document everything," Judge Clark said during one of their secret meetings. "We need proof that will hold up in court." Dr. Park had been studying the neural devices more closely. "I think I understand how they work now. The devices monitor brain activity and inject thoughts that feel natural to the person. Over time, the artificial thoughts become stronger than the person's original personality." "Can the devices be removed?" Jake asked. "Maybe, but it would be very dangerous, and we would need to disable the central control system first. If we just remove individual devices, the Zanari will know we have discovered them." Judge Clark used her legal knowledge to help them build a case. "We need to find the central control system. If we can prove it exists and shut it down, we can free all the compromised officials at once." Their investigation led them to a restricted area near the colony's water treatment plant. Zanari technicians went there regularly, but humans were not allowed inside. The area was officially listed as an alien research facility studying water purification methods. "That has to be it," Jake said. "The central control hub for the neural devices." Colonel Miller had finally agreed to meet with them after Jake and Maria presented him with preliminary evidence. The colonel had his own suspicions about Zanari activities but had not been able to prove anything. "This explains a lot of strange orders I have been getting lately," Colonel Miller said. "My superiors want me to reduce security around Zanari facilities. They say it shows trust in our alien partners." The colonel provided building plans for the water treatment facility. There were sections that did not appear on public records, underground levels that were supposedly used for equipment storage. "If we are going to expose this conspiracy, we need to get inside that facility," Judge Clark said. "We need evidence of the central control system." Jake looked at the building plans. "That place will be heavily guarded, and if we are wrong about this, we will all go to prison." "If we are right and we do nothing," Judge Clark replied, "the Zanari will control this entire colony within a year, maybe sooner." Dr. Park finished his analysis of the neural device technology. "I think I can build a device that will disrupt the alien control signals. But someone would have to get very close to the central hub." They all realized what that meant. Someone would have to break into the Zanari facility and plant Dr. Park's disruption device. It was dangerous and probably illegal, but it might be the only way to save the colony from alien control. "I will do it," Jake said. "I am already suspended from the police force. If this goes wrong, I have the least to lose." The others protested, but Jake had made up his mind. He had started this investigation when he pointed his gun at Judge Clark. Now he would finish it by going after the source of the alien conspiracy. The next morning, Jake Morrison sat in Captain Lisa Rodriguez's office. He had not slept all night. The alien device was locked up in evidence. Judge Clark was in the hospital getting tests done, and Jake was about to lose his job. Captain Rodriguez was angry. She had been Jake's boss for 5 years. She trusted him, but she could not understand what happened last night. "Jake, you pointed a gun at a federal judge," she said. "Judge Clark is one of the most respected people in this colony. She has never done anything wrong. Why did you think she was a threat?" Jake tried to explain. "Captain, something was wrong with her. Her eyes looked different, and that device in her briefcase was definitely alien technology." "The device could have been planted," Captain Rodriguez said. "Someone might have put it there to make her look suspicious, but that does not explain why you drew your weapon." Jake knew how crazy his story sounded. "I just had a feeling. Something told me she was dangerous." "A feeling is not enough reason to threaten a judge, Jake. Internal Affairs is coming this afternoon. They want to interview everyone who was there. You are suspended without pay until they finish their investigation. Jake left the police station feeling lost. His career was probably over, but he could not shake the feeling that he had done the right thing. Judge Clark had been acting strange, and that alien device did not get in her briefcase by accident. He drove to the Colony Medical Center to check on the judge. The doctors said her tests were normal, but she was still having headaches. They were keeping her for observation. Jake asked to see her, but the doctor said she was too tired for visitors. Walking through the hospital parking lot, Jake saw Dr. Kevin Park getting out of his car. Kevin was the colony's expert on alien biology. He studied the Zanari and their technology. Jake had met him at a few police meetings about alien-related crimes. "Dr. Park," Jake called out. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Kevin walked over. He was a thin man with gray hair and thick glasses. He always looked worried about something. "Detective Morrison, I heard about what happened last night," Kevin said. "The whole colony is talking about it. Dr. Park, I need to ask you something. Is it possible for the Zanari to control human minds?" Kevin looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Why are you asking that question?" Judge Clark was acting very strange last night. Her eyes looked different, like they were glowing, and she had that alien device, but she did not remember putting it in her briefcase. Dr. Park was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Meet me at my lab in 1 hour. There are things I need to show you, things I have been studying in secret." Jake spent the next hour walking around the colony center. He saw normal people doing normal things, shopping, working, talking with friends, but he started noticing small details. City workers were putting up new signs about Zanari trade agreements. The signs said the aliens were good partners for humanity. 3 months ago, those same workers had been complaining about the aliens. Now they seemed happy to promote Zanari business. Maybe people just changed their minds, or maybe something else was happening. He went to Dr. Park's lab at the Colony Research Center. Kevin let him in through a back door. The lab was full of strange equipment and alien artifacts. Most of them were gifts from the Zanari to help humans understand their technology. "Jake, what I am about to tell you must stay secret," Kevin said. "I have been studying Zanari neural technology for 6 months. I think they have found a way to influence human thoughts." Kevin showed Jake to a computer screen. There were brain scan images on the display. "These are scans of colony officials who have changed their opinions about the Zanari," Kevin said. "Look at these dark spots in the brain tissue. They should not be there." Jake looked at the images. He was not a doctor, but he could see the dark areas Kevin was pointing to. "What are those spots?" Jake asked. "I think they are microscopic devices, so small they cannot be detected by normal medical scans, but they show up if you know what to look for." Kevin pulled up more brain scans. "This is City Councilman Paul Davis from last week. 6 months ago, he was fighting against Zanari mining rights. Now he supports everything they want to do, and look at his brain scan. The same dark spots were there, small but clearly visible once you knew how to see them." "How many people have these spots?" Jake asked. "I have been checking secretly for 2 months. At least 15 high-ranking officials show signs of neural devices. Maybe more." Jake felt cold inside. "Dr. Park, can you scan Judge Clark's brain? If she agrees to it." "But Jake, if I am right about this, we are in serious trouble. The Zanari are not just trading with us. They are taking control of our leaders' minds." Kevin showed Jake more evidence. Photos of officials before and after their opinion changes. Behavioral analysis reports. Medical data that suggested foreign objects in brain tissue. "Why have you not reported this to the authorities?" Jake asked. "Because I think some of the authorities might be compromised," Kevin said. "I do not know who to trust anymore." Jake thought about the events of last night. Judge Clark coming to warn him about a conspiracy. The alien device in her briefcase. The strange look in her eyes. "Dr. Park, I think Judge Clark was fighting the neural device. I think part of her mind was trying to warn me while another part was trying to stop her." Kevin nodded. That would explain her behavior. The human consciousness fighting against alien control. They spent the next 2 hours going through Kevin's research. The evidence was frightening. The Zanari had been slowly taking over the colony's government by controlling key officials. Not through force, but through mind control so subtle that even the victims did not know it was happening. "We need to tell someone about this," Jake said. "Who can we tell?" Kevin asked. "The mayor supports Zanari expansion. The police chief just signed new cooperation agreements with alien security forces. The colony administrator is pushing for deeper integration with the Zanari systems. Jake realized they were alone in this. Two men against an alien conspiracy that had infected the highest levels of government. What about Judge Clark? Jake asked. If we can prove she has a neural device, maybe we can remove it. She might be willing to help us expose the others. It would be very dangerous, Kevin said. Removing the device wrong could kill her or cause permanent brain damage. Jake looked at all the evidence around the lab. Brain scans, behavioral reports, photos of compromised officials. Dr. Park, if we do not do something, the Zanari will control this entire colony. Maybe all human colonies. Kevin was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I have been working on a way to detect and disrupt the neural devices, but I would need help, and we would need to be very careful. What kind of help? Jake asked. People we can trust completely, people who have not been compromised, and we would need access to the officials who have the devices. Jake thought about his fellow cops, Officer Rick Brown, Detective Maria Lopez, Sergeant Pete Wilson. They had all been at the station last night. None of them had shown signs of strange behavior. I might know some people we can trust, Jake said. As Jake left the lab, he realized his life had changed completely. Yesterday, he was a cop investigating normal crimes. Today, he was part of a resistance movement against alien mind control. His career might be over, but maybe he could help save the colony. He just hoped they were not already too late. Detective Jake Morrison sat at his desk in the new Terra Colony police station. Rain hit the windows hard that Tuesday night. He had been working late again, looking through files about strange things happening in the city. People were acting different lately. Important people were changing their minds about deals with the aliens called Zanari. Jake had been a cop for 15 years. He trusted his gut feelings. Something was wrong in the colony, but he could not put his finger on it. The Zanari had come to their world 3 years ago. They said they wanted to trade and help humans. At first, most people did not trust them. Now many leaders were saying the aliens were good friends. The front door of the station opened. Judge Amanda Clark walked in. She was one of the most important people in the colony. Jake had known her for 8 years. She was always calm and smart. Tonight she looked scared and tired. Her hands were shaking as she walked toward his desk. Detective Morrison, I need to talk to you, she said in a quiet voice. It is very important. Can we go somewhere private? Jake looked around the station. 3 other cops were working late that night. Officer Rick Brown was at the front desk. Detective Maria Lopez was making coffee. Sergeant Pete Wilson was reading reports. Jake stood up and pointed to the small meeting room near the back. We can talk in there, Judge Clark, he said. They walked to the room and Jake closed the door. Judge Clark sat down at the table. She put her briefcase on the floor next to her chair. Her face was very pale and she kept looking around like someone might be watching. Jake, I need your help, she said. Something terrible is happening. The Zanari are not what they seem. They are doing things to people. Bad things. Jake sat across from her. What kind of things? They are controlling people somehow, making them think different thoughts. I have seen documents that prove they are bribing officials. But it is more than money. They are changing people's minds from the inside. Judge Clark reached for her briefcase. Her hand was still shaking. Jake watched her carefully. In all the years he had known her, she had never looked this scared. She opened the briefcase and started to reach inside. That was when Jake saw it. A flash of metal inside the briefcase. His cop instincts kicked in fast. That was not a document or a file. The shape was wrong. The size was wrong. It looked like a weapon, but there was something else. Something that made his skin feel cold. For just a second, Judge Clark's eyes looked different. They had a strange glow in them. Like light reflecting off water at night. Jake had seen that glow before in pictures of Zanari technology. His hand moved to his gun without thinking. Years of training took over. He pulled out his weapon and pointed it straight at Judge Clark. She froze with her hand still in the briefcase. Don't move, Jake said in a loud voice. The other cops in the station heard him. Officer Brown ran toward the meeting room. Detective Lopez dropped her coffee cup. Sergeant Wilson jumped up from his chair. They all saw Jake pointing his gun at the federal judge. Jake, what are you doing? Rick Brown shouted. Judge Clark looked confused and scared. Detective Morrison, please put your gun down. I came here for help. Jake kept his weapon aimed at her. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. Something was very wrong here. The woman in front of him looked like Judge Clark. She sounded like Judge Clark, but those eyes were not right. Show me what is in the briefcase, Jake said. Show me slowly. Judge Clark's face changed. For a moment she looked angry. Then she looked confused again, like she was fighting with herself inside her own head. I don't understand why you are doing this, she said. I came here to warn you about the Zanari conspiracy. Then show me what you were reaching for, Jake said. The other cops surrounded the meeting room. They could see through the glass door. Detective Lopez had her hand on her gun too, but she did not know who to point it at. Was their colleague going crazy, or was there really a threat? Judge Clark pulled her hand out of the briefcase very slowly. In her fingers was a small metal device. It was silver and had strange markings on it. Jake had never seen anything like it, but he knew it was not human technology. What is that thing? Sergeant Wilson asked through the door. Judge Clark stared at the device in her hand. She looked surprised to see it there. I don't know, she said. I don't remember putting this in my briefcase. Jake saw fear in her eyes now. Real fear. Not fear of his gun, but fear of something else. Fear of herself, maybe. Judge Clark, I need you to put that device on the table and step away from it, Jake said. She did what he asked. The metal device made a soft humming sound when she put it down. A small blue light started blinking on one end. That is Zanari technology, Detective Lopez said. She had studied alien artifacts in police training. That looks like some kind of communication device or maybe a weapon. Judge Clark backed away from the table. I swear I did not know that was in my briefcase. Someone must have put it there. Jake kept his gun ready, but he started to believe her. The judge looked as confused as everyone else. But if she did not put the device in her briefcase, who did? And why did her eyes look strange a few minutes ago? We need to call this in, Sergeant Wilson said. Internal Affairs will want to know why you pulled a gun on a federal judge. Jake nodded, but he did not put his weapon away yet. Something told him the danger was not over. Judge Clark might not know about the device, but that did not mean she was safe. If someone could put alien technology in her briefcase without her knowing, what else might they have done to her? The humming sound from the device got louder. The blue light started flashing faster. Then suddenly it stopped. The light went out and the humming ended. Judge Clark put her hand to her head like she had a bad headache. I think I need to go to the hospital, she said. Something is wrong with me. Jake finally lowered his gun. Whatever had just happened, he knew his career was probably over. You don't point a weapon at a federal judge and keep your job. But looking at that alien device on the table, he also knew he had been right to trust his instincts. Something very dangerous was happening in New Terra Colony, and Judge Amanda Clark was right in the middle of it.